Walking Blind is hosted by overly emotional dudes who overthink and overanalyze everything. Nothing the hosts say should be taken as medical advice or opinion. They're not professionals, and they're about to make that very clear. So just kick back and hang with them, because you've earned it.
Start it up.
It's Mike's time to shine.
All right.
Let's do this.
Well, welcome to the Walking Blind podcast. I'm Mike. This is Mike. And today we have a very special guest. This is Dylan Tayag. Is that right? Tayag?
Tayag.
All right, cool.
Yep.
There's a lot of stuff I probably should have said before. But
Hold on, it's gonna throw me off having Mike and Mike. Are you Michael? Can we do
Sure. You just kind of say Mike, and then one of us will respond.
Mike one?
That's usually how it goes.
or Perez or Diamonds.
Yeah. I don't think we've ever mentioned that on the show yet until now.
I want people to guess what that
Diamonds
is
means.
Yeah.
All right,
I'll need the story at some point.
previous time.
So Dylan is social worker, right?
Therapist.
Licensed therapist. There you go. Lead singer of a band, right?
Yeah. Highland.
Named Highland. Way better band than either myself or the other Mike playing.
Not even close. Not even close.
They are a pure noise record band.
Way more. Of a
and
pure noise band.
I have shown Jake has heard you guys, so I have passed you guys on.
Thanks for the plug, man.
Yeah, man. And then the connection here is that you were Mike's teacher, mentor, kind of all of the above. So this is kind of like, you guys have the history. You guys have the conversation pieces.
Yeah, man. When was that? That was 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm. So something that funny today, I hadn't thought about it until we were on our way to get food. And then, and then you said it when I walked out to you, was like, this is our first time really talking in person.
Right.
Because when I did see him at school, I hadn't taken your class yet. And so he was just one of the professors that I kind of would walk by and kind of see that he was in class. But then when I did take his class, it was already during the pandemic. It was all online. And it's weird that now we're our first real, because we've talked since then, obviously. And
technically we're colleagues. You've once you've graduated and you've gotten past that, the whole gatekeeping process. Yeah, I wouldn't call you my student. That's weird. I'm not your Professor Tayag.
Professor Tayag.
That'd be like me continuing to call you Coach Mike.
Yeah.
So he coached
so.
me in baseball.
No way.
When I first moved back to California, to age us here. When I came back, I went to La Sierra Academy with my cousin.
No way. You guys are La Sierra Academy guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy. No.
Yeah.
No, I knew you were affiliated with the community because your dad and this and that. I didn't know you went to academy.
Oh, yeah.
Dude,
that's crazy.
So even to make the Adventist world even smaller, I was born at Glendale Adventist. My grandfather was a pastor in Glendale.
Wow.
And then even my cousins, and then grew up in Eagle Rock, left, came back, and then ended up at La Sierra Academy for a year and a half, basically.
That's gnarly.
So
wow.
I show up and I'm this kid that has gauged ears and my snake bites and all this stuff like that. But I had to take it all out at school. But of course, the person that would notice is Mike, who's coaching baseball. And I'm throwing a baseball with my cousin. And Mike walks over. He's like, "You're new here. You're not from around here, huh?"
You don't look like the rest of them.
He's like, "You want to play baseball?" I was like, "I guess, whatever." And then he was my coach for a year. And then I graduated, and then a year or two later, we're touring together.
Crazy. That's crazy.
Legit a year.
Wait, how old were you guys when you started? So you're talking about No Bragging Rights?
No, I played in a different band.
Oh, something.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But there's 3-year age difference between us, something like that. So it's not like he was an old dude. You wouldn't know by the hair, but
Crazy.
Wait, how old are you?
34.
Okay, well,
4 years. 3-4 years. Yeah.
Yeah,
3
years.
That.
3 years.
That's crazy.
3 years and some change,
So you guys are both from the Adventist system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ended up Adventist World, both named Mike.
Yeah. I was hoping we could find some kind of weird Filipino SEA tie between you two.
Yeah.
Probably, man. I wouldn't doubt it.
He's like, what if you guys are like cousins? It's like
I would
there might be some weird
possibly
connection somewhere down the line.
No, dude, yeah, my folks attend like an SDA Phil-Am church
Really?
in San Diego.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
somehow we're probably somehow interlocked.
You know, Philip Salau.
Yeah.
Just start throwing names out.
Just start throwing family names out. My cousin just married a dude from San Diego, Filipino dude from San Diego. I don't think he's Adventist though. His name's Brent.
Shame on him.
Dude,
He grew up Catholic, like most of the other Filipinos.
just a random
I could
side
be wrong though. I don't know.
random side story. So, you remember when the Ghost Inside came back?
Yeah.
Did that show?
Mhm.
Well, during that whole thing, there's this group of guys that were here for the show from Louisiana, and so they hit me up on Instagram just saying that they were fans of the band, and I was like, dude, like let's. Oh, you went with me?
Yeah, I went with
Yeah, you went with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went and we met up with them. Super cool. Like the whole group of them, really cool guys. And so I invited them to like come to the house. You know, I don't know if my mom made tacos or what, but I invited them over. And so of course they meet my mom, and my mom does like the thing that is like, Mom, why? Like she's like, oh, you guys are from Louisville, yeah. And then she's asking what they do. And one of the guys like, oh yeah, I work at the hospital, blah blah. And my mom was like, oh, do you know Deidre? He's like, she blonde? Like, well, he's like, yeah.
No
Does she work in the
way.
so and so? He's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, I do. I know her.
No way.
I was like,
crazy.
are you kidding me? Oh, dude, that's like my mom's.
Your mom is. We had her on last week. We had her on last week's episode, and it's been like one of the most well received episodes because everybody's interested in talking to Mike's mom. But she's the most extra and sweetest person you'll ever meet.
I believe
And then
it.
she knows everybody. Like she knows. Yeah, it's crazy. She knows my family, and I didn't know what the connection was before. And I was like, wait, what? How do you know them?
She probably treats everybody like family. That's probably where. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, man. So I guess I don't know if we should go into it now. I guess more of an introduction to you, man. I want so our listeners can know more or less
Sure.
what you're doing, man.
You want me to introduce myself or?
Yeah.
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 Well, yeah, I was, that's how I met Mike. I was a professor. I still am, kind of. A contract professor at La Sierra University. I teach some social work classes. But full-time gig is, I've worked in a bunch of different health systems, being a therapist, getting hours to become licensed and all that. But now I am independently working. I own a practice called Rebuild Therapy. I have some pretty niche populations that I work with, but I pretty much serve whoever's in need, we could dive into those specialties later if you have questions about that and the type of work that I've been doing. But yeah, that's pretty much me. I'm 30, I got a wife, I got 2 dogs at home, and I got a newborn who is like officially a month old now.
Dude.
Yeah. Crazy.
Is that your first kid?
Yes.
First kid?
First ever. Oh my God.
How has that been adjusting to like?
I can't even explain it, man, because we're not doing this in the traditional sense. There's, you think about water broke, let's rush to the, hospital, and then we come home the next day.
Right.
No, my wife got really sick beginning of January, and she had preeclampsia.
Okay.
And so they had to do an early C-section. Baby came like 9 weeks early.
Oh, wow.
So they have her in the NICU.
What's a preeclampsia?
Preeclampsia, it's, let me see if I can explain this the best way possible. So it's when there's something going wrong with the placenta and the baby. So in our case, the baby side was totally fine. She's getting her nutrients. My wife, on the other hand, there's some level of toxicity on her side of the placenta, which was starting to like fail or whatever. So she started getting really bloated. And it's like, hey, this is your life on the line type of thing. We got to get the baby out of there. And, the moment they pulled her out, she starts recovering pretty quickly, So yeah, the baby came and dude, I literally go to the hospital every single day. Every day I get to do like skin to skin time with her. She gets to sit on my chest and then she'll do the breastfeeding or whatever. But it's kind of hard, You expect having the baby at home in the crib, and like holding her and stuff. But
And so she's still in the hospital.
still there, at least
I didn't
until
think that.
March.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because she was due March 12th. So yeah, it's rough.
How is that affecting your
your wife? Like, is that
She's a champ.
really?
She is the strongest person. I'm not just saying this, babe, because you might hear this, but she's handling it like no other. You know, I think one thing that's definitely helped is our faith, you know, and trusting God throughout this whole process. But she is just like, dude, I show up to the OR the day they call me, hey, we're taking the baby out, right? I kid you not, I walk through these doors, I'm like gowned up and stuff. I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be crazy.
So ready.
Yeah. And then I hear them, they're already cutting into her. Next thing you know, I go around the table and she's just like, hey, what's up, babe? Oh, yeah. Doctors, you're doing good. You're doing like, dude, has not phased her.
Amazing.
Like fist bump if you want.
Yeah, yes. And then
Hey, good job.
after the procedure, they give her this whole bottle of Percocets. And I'm like, you're going to probably need those. And she took 2 of them.
Really?
She's like got the highest pain tolerance that I.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's
So,
she's a champion.
dude, yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, that's
So she's doing good, man. She's taken herself to the hospital a lot sooner than they said her recovery time would be, and you know all that. So she's getting to
Yeah.
check in with the baby a lot. So she's good, man. She's
that's
doing
awesome.
good. If anything, I was struggling emotionally more than her.
Yeah.
At least from what I feel happened. Yeah. So
that's it's crazy how, I mean, like, one, what she went through, like the connection between a mom and the baby, like how much it's not a little thing, but the littlest things can mess up that whole balance.
Yeah.
And just really, you know, it can go left really, really quickly.
easily, if she didn't go to the hospital when she did, she took herself. You know, they were telling her it's just high blood pressure. You need to just kind of stay home and chill.
She's like,
But
something's wrong.
Yeah, that intuition. If she had never gone to the hospital, she'd be dead. Guaranteed. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
so
crazy.
can't tell me that's not a miracle, man.
So, and then through that process, I don't want to dive too deep into it, but so are you guys like, room's ready, everything's ready?
Not
just
even
waiting
close.
for the baby to come home?
Not
or is
even
it-
close.
Okay.
You know, we were like going to start prepping February because we had our baby shower and everybody was
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, gifting us what the things that we needed. That house is like halfway set up.
Yeah.
And so now when they give us a date of when, like, hey, this is the anticipated discharge time, that's when I'll say I'm going to go into cleaning mode. And I actually had to get rid of 2 cats because she's deathly allergic. So I hit up your girl, Elena.
Yes.
She adopted Charlie, and some old friends adopted our other cat because we just can't have all that fur all around the place.
For sure.
So
All those pieces now make sense because we were in the coffee shop yesterday and Elena's like, yeah, I'm getting a cat. And he's like, oh yeah, he's bringing the cat. And I was like, what's happening?
how'd that even happen?
That makes sense.
No, dude. No, I appreciate that was clutch because I got to drop them off same day. Yeah.
Very cool.
I don't have a problem. Like, there's certain things I have no problem like asking for, or like, you know.
Hey, anybody want a cat?
Yeah. And so like, I just like recently got re-added into the coffee. Like, I'm back at the coffee shop they're working at, and so I got re-added to their group chat, which felt nice. And you know, I'm in there like maybe a week, and like of day one, I promote like I had a show coming up for like the punk band. Hey, if anybody wants to come out, we have a show tonight.
Like,
And
oh,
then-
this guy.
Yeah.
Mike's back.
And then, dude, I hadn't even worked yet, and I was just like, hey, excited to be back. First shift's back tomorrow. Excited, guys. Does anybody want a cat? By chance? My buddy has a cat. It's free. And then I was like, I realized I didn't get so much. I didn't get all the
Info,
information from you, and I was like, oh yeah, it's. But
It was quick.
That was quick, man.
It was quick. Yeah. Elena's like, yeah, I want the cat. I was like, oh, dang. Okay, let's go.
Yeah.
Helped us a
That's cool
lot.
because a lot of times it's kind of hard to like give away an animal because people are like, wait, what? Why?
Yeah,
What's wrong with the cat? How can
Right.
we get the cat, you know? Yeah, that's yeah.
But yeah, so that's how that all pieced out. So, but otherwise, to answer your question, no, we're not even close to being prepared, man. I bought a crib. I bought all the essentials, and like that's all set up. But just having the house organized in a way that makes sense, because you're gonna need to have all that stuff with the bottle rack and making space in your freezer to organize the frozen. It's fucking crazy, man. Like all the little things you never would think about.
Yeah, the
You
things
don't have kids, right?
No, I
you don't either. Okay,
The
so
things that we've never put thought to.
yeah, you wouldn't even. Yeah.
The only things I've seen from the uncle side was somebody had to come and basically, like, not show my brother and sister-in-law how to put in a car seat, but to show them so that it was like regulation everything was like
So it was properly.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was like,
They do, yeah. So before you bring your baby home, you're supposed to be able to do that car seat test, and your baby's got to be at least 4 pounds. They put her in that like specific position, and they have to be able to stay there for 90 minutes to get clearance for even coming home. Like I didn't even think about that. I was like, oh yeah, I thought
I
they
didn't
just
even know
give
that
you your
was a
baby.
thing.
I know.
Yeah, because they got to make sure that the baby's gonna make it
Wow.
safely. So.
Two very undereducated gentlemen about.
Dude, I'm still learning, man. It's too much.
That's so the dad mode. I mean, obviously dad mode has kicked in, but like the full dad mode is still pending or still
For
loading,
sure,
right?
I would imagine.
Yeah.
It's going to be a whole nother like layer of stress on
Yeah,
top of that.
absolutely.
Because you, I think that throughout the pregnancy, the one thing that comes to my mind is finances. Right, as a man, we want to provide and blah blah blah. And I started working like even more just to hustle, make up for income, and that's like the one thing I feel I was never able to turn off.
Yeah.
Like this whole time, and I'm still always in that mode. My brain's somewhere here thinking about finances. And yeah, man,
I don't
it's
think
crazy.
that will go away though. I think that'll be there for.
Probably.
Yeah,
But yeah,
forever
until
now.
she's out of my house, until she can take care of herself. Like,
And then even
geez.
then, you're probably just gonna be like, I wonder if she needs groceries.
Right? Yeah.
It's,
Now I know how my parents probably feel.
Yeah.
So
yeah, get good at practicing the $10. Why do you want $9?
Yeah.
What could you possibly buy with $8?
She might with 8.
dude, yeah, it's gonna be tough.
It's exciting though, because it's I kind of feel like, I mean, like I said, I don't have any kids, but I kind of feel like having a kid is, it's terrifying, but at the same time there's like excitement to it.
Yeah.
'Cause it's so unpredictable from that point moving forward. You don't know how your kid's going to turn out. Obviously you're going to try and make them the best that they can possibly be, but then this may sound rude, but then your kid might end up being an asshole, and then you're like, oh man, I'm like, is this my fault? Did I do this?
There's a certain percentage that I feel like we need to take responsibility for,
Right.
And the rest is her or their experiences through their peers and school,
Yeah.
other adult figures, and all
Absolutely.
that. But I would say, like, if I had to put a number on it, I would say parenting comes down to maybe 30-40%.
Really?
You set them up with that foundation, right? Instill whatever values, teaching them appropriate behavior early on, right? And hope that sticks.
For some reason, I would have thought that number would be higher.
The rest is all, no, think about it.
But
Your
that
kids
makes
spend
sense,
so many
though.
hours of the day at school,
Sure,
exposed
away.
to other kids and other, I guess, whatever those kids' parents are teaching them, and
Yeah.
they're going to absorb some of that and start to
Absolutely.
become free thinkers. And I think developmentally speaking, adolescence is the most critical time, right? Because I don't know about you guys, but I remember being a teenager going, whoa, this is different from my family structure. Or, whoa, this is different from, right? I didn't know life could be this way. And so when they piece that together, they're going to make those decisions. And I mean, you'd hope that, there's like the picture perfect thing that I would hope for my daughter to do.
Right.
But you got to be realistic that that's not going to happen. Probably not.
Yeah.
So
That makes total sense. Like really thinking about it, it makes total sense.
No, like my parents.
Yeah.
I like to think about the fact that like they I think they did a pretty good job raising me.
Yeah.
And then like by the time I was 10, dude, I listened to punk rock, and I'm getting over the radio. Like I mostly just like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I'm just like, but
that's
that was
that's a lifestyle like kind of shift away from whatever. But did your parents deter you from that?
Nah. Listen, no, they're supportive. I think, but like you said, I think, but that side of it was shaped in the fact that I always felt I was like too.
You're the black sheep of the family.
Yeah, or I was not even just like in the environments I was in. I was a Hispanic kid, and I always felt like I wasn't like white enough for my white friend. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, no,
and
dude. Yeah.
I've been there.
and then also like I played sports. My dad was an athlete, and we were really into sports, and so I played sports. But at the same time, I also like enjoyed like the skating side. Like I didn't skate, but like all my friends that were part of the punk rock scene, they
Of course.
that all
Skateboard.
yeah. And so I always felt like I was never truly part of one world, and punk rock seemed to speak to that.
I get that too, because when I was a kid, I was born here, but when we left, we ended up Tennessee, South Carolina, Georgia, Connecticut, back down.
Crazy.
So it was the new kid every year. And so it was always like, okay, how do I fit in here? Like, what's it going to be like with these kids here? And then eventually it just like, when I got to Georgia, In my high school, I was the only Filipino kid. There were no other Filipino kids.
What was the rest?
Like, it was all like a bunch of white kids, a bunch of black kids. There were some Hispanic kids, some Korean foreign exchange students, and then like a small group of like Chinese kids. And then that was it. Like, that was like pretty much it at the high school. So when I came in, they're like, "What are you?" I'm like, "Filipino."
You heard of that?
And they're like, where's that? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Why do you kind of look Mexican?
yeah. So like, I remember at one point some kid being like, well, like, I've never heard of Filipinesian people, you know? And I'm like, whoa, dude, like this, me neither. But so, yeah. And then I remember like I was there for a year or so, and then I became like, I accepted the fact I'm the only Filipino kid. And then this new Filipino kid comes to the school, like foreign exchange student. And I was like, "Hey, who's this guy?" Like, "What's up, bro? Like, what's going on?" You know,
You're like automatically linked up.
yeah. So, but yeah, like to me, like, you know, I associated with like the skate kids, the punk kids, and then like I got into rap and hip hop. Like, one of my best friends is like my brother's, you know, big black dude that's just like family, you know. So like to me, same thing. Like, I associated with. I mean, I was wearing like FUBU and stuff in high school, you know. Like I had at one point I was wearing a do-rag hat, you know, like,
Yes.
unnecessary, but
But
it's
see,
just
the beautiful
culture,
thing about
you know?
all of that is you probably absorbed so much of that culture that's
Yeah.
translated into your adult life to
Yeah.
a benefit, right? And not being so closed-minded into, you know, whatever it is that you were raised into. I think that's the beautiful thing about having exposure to so much different culture.
Yeah.
Not just, you know, from race and ethnicity, but like subculture, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely.
So it's huge.
Yeah. And I do remember my dad, because my dad raised me on like rock and roll, and you know, he was back in the day, he was involved in the rock and roll scene here. I wish I could go more in depth in that story, but we'll have him tell it.
We have to have him come on to tell these stories, man.
Yeah, but you know, like he was just like so baffled by like hip hop and rap and that culture, and he'd be like, "Why are your pants so fucking low? Like, pull your damn pants up. Like, you look, you know." Like,
Oh, man.
so, and then eventually he just kind of like, "All right, this, you know, it is what it is." Like, you know, but yeah, it's just definitely the experience of not really knowing where to fit in, and then like experiencing so many different aspects and cultures, and like, you know, kind of, I have an open mind to everything now, I think.
Right.
You know?
That's good.
Which makes your answer or your response makes more sense.
So do you guys want to jump into like your school experience, like with?
Well, so what I wanted to kind of go into is because this is like it became like a big thing for me, especially for anyone that knows or cares about like my music side, right? And so I remember in class, I don't know how far into being in your class this happened, but I know that what sparked the conversation was, you know, when I took his class, it was over Zoom, and I saw your setup, and I was just like, what do you have, like, why do you have like a nice setup, you know? And then you're like, "Oh, I do music, like because of music."
I had the, you know, like a boom mic arm, like hanging, you know, you can tell it's like a my home studio.
It's a desk setup, yeah.
All our other professors, you know, like they're like too close to the screen,
Or
like
laptops in their thing and it's facing up
Yeah.
at their chin.
he had like a setup, like you can tell, like everything was. I'm like, so I was like, you know, why? Like, why do you have that? And then you're like, "Oh, well, you know, I you know, do music, I recording equipment and stuff." And I was like, "Oh, cool." I think that was kind of like the little opening. And then I can't remember if I even told. I think I just said like, "Oh, like I like music too," or.
This guy says, "No, I remember the first line you dropped. I'm in a melodic hardcore band." I said, "Shut the fuck up. What do you mean melodic hardcore?"
Yeah.
Like,
What is this
I was like, hold on. Okay, so what is the name of your band? And I remember when you said the name, I was like, I've heard of this band. I've heard of this. So I go on Spotify. I was like, no way. Crazy. And so I'm bumping Cycles and, you know,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I've heard this shit 5 years ago. What are you talking about? This is crazy. You're the singer in this band? And then I was like, okay, this guy, like, might be, I mean, it might have been a partial bias that, like, developed right there in that moment. But then I was like, okay, if this guy's anything like me, I want him to be in this field. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I was like, and this is way before I even knew about like what your lyrics were or what the band stood for and like how, you know, outwardly, I would say like just outspoken about like mental health issues and stuff like that. And, but then I did my research and then I realized like how big of a deal this is to fans of the band. Mm-hmm. So I was like, this is a movement in my opinion. I can see that. And you would tell me, oh yeah, fans would come to me after the show and talk this and that. I was like, then you're in the right field. Like you're pursuing the right career. If you want to do this like from a professional, you know, background, like, yeah, this is the right place to be.
So before you jumped into like the lyrical content and stuff, like what was it that you kind of like, I see myself in you, like, what was that you saw? Like,
not even, okay, if it's not the lyrics, it was definitely the music.
Just, okay.
Yeah, the music, dude. Like, I didn't even know, well, I still don't know much about you, like personally, right? But the music says it all. Like, I think that there's a very specific population of people that gravitate towards that. I mean, for various reasons. Some people like just like the heaviness of it or whatever. But then I was just like, if I think about me and every other kid that attended shows of bands just like this, it's because like we all shared something about coming from like a home that had some issues or some mental health problems, or we've dealt with depression, no, me too, or I've dealt with drugs or whatever, and like kind of, I don't know, shedding light on a lot of that stuff, because in my opinion, I think that's as real as it gets. You know, not talking about, you know, slapping bitches with dollars and stuff in music. That's a whole. I mean, it has its place. I can get down with that. But like,
dollars.
but yeah, that's the thing. And I was just like, okay, if this guy came from this scene, like, he gets it. You know what I mean?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
And so we had a talk. Remember, you were like, hey, can you stay after on the Zoom? And then, so yeah, sure. So and then he basically kind of told me kind of more or less what you just said. Now he kind of gave me a little bit of that. And one of the things that people didn't realize was, for me to go back to school, I had basically cut music out. Like I cut out a lot of things in my life just because I know myself. I didn't give myself too many things to, I guess, distract me. And I was almost terrified of the thought of music, especially in the bragging rights, because it's always been, that was like something I, you know, invested so much time in, and that was like my passion. And so like it was almost, I almost would feel guilty, or I'd almost feel, like a guilt or something, or like almost felt like, dude, don't think about this, because then you're going to fuck it up and you're going to like drop all this progress you made in school, and you're going to go back to like touring and not giving a shit about school. Because that was like my MO. Like I'd always leave. And so I was so hardcore focused on just like school, no music. Like
it's like one track.
Yeah. Dude, like this sounds really weird, but like I even had a hard time listening to certain like bands just because I was afraid that I would be like, get like sucked back in.
You get the itch, dude.
Wow.
Yeah. And so like this is why like I'm happy here, because I don't think you realize how big your conversation with me was, because you kind of let me know that like this is a side of you that is like, it's okay. Like, cause you're like, dude, you need to do music. And you're like, I will show you.
I remember this conversation. Yeah.
You're like, I will show you how you can do it. Like, I'll show you, like, this is the class you need to take. I'll let you know what kind of internships you need, what kind of intro jobs you want to get, and to where you want to go, because you can do both. Mm-hmm. And I didn't think I could do that. I didn't even think that was like a possibility until you basically were just like, you can do both. You need to do both. And so, because had we not had the conversation, when No Bragging Rights starts talking about music, like last year, I would have shut it off. I would have been like, I can't do it. Maybe in June when I graduate, like we can revisit this, but like I would have just been like so like afraid of it, basically, just because I would have been like, oh, this is so like me, so close to the finish line, and then I'm like,
and then I'm just gonna give up right here at the end. Yeah,
it's good that you know that you have a pattern of that.
Yeah, which is terrifying.
Right.
And so, but yeah, so that was like that was really a big deal to me, because then I was just like, I can't do this, and I just need to be smart about it. And so And that's when I set boundaries with the guys, and I was able to make it work and managed to graduate, which was
so
awesome.
During that time frame, and I don't think I ever thought of this until now. When Burner State started, had you already had the conversation with the guys about starting to write for NBR, or did Burner State come first and then NBR came?
Burner State came first, and then NBR came.
So this conversation was before that, then, because with Burner State, that was still a part of you that you were separating from school, also, wasn't it?
Well, also too, because I probably didn't even bring up Burner State with you, because for me at the time, Burner State was just we would jam, and then the whole purpose with that band was that we were going to just record. Yeah. And then no shows. We just something we do on Sundays. That's how that band started. Yeah. And so that was safe for me. I was like, I can do that. I can do that.
Yeah.
And so, but then even again, after the conversation, I think so when I became even more invested and being okay with even Burner State, my punk band. I don't know if I told you.
You sent me a couple pre-pros, I think.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So. And so and now I'm same thing, I'm playing, we play shows, not often, but we're playing shows, play shows, no big deal. But it was just but anyway, that conversation was so helpful for me, because I actually don't even know if even when I finished school, I don't think I would have allowed myself to enjoy music like that, to enjoy I don't know. Yeah,
it's almost like you're just talking about it like an addiction.
Yeah.
I want to start smoking again because I'll go all in.
Dude, that was when we were touring, we had the best problem in the world was we were always on the road. Mm-hmm. Always. Love leaving. Yeah. Missed everything. Yeah. But that was okay, as long as we're playing shows. And then eventually once, the message really took over what the band was, and that became even more of of what we wanted to do, and so I don't know. I just didn't think I could do both. I thought I can only be Mike and NBR. I can only be Mike who wants to be a social worker or take this path. I thought I could only do those two. And then your conversation really just it made it okay for me to be okay, yeah, I can do this. I just gotta be smart,
right?
And so
I think that type of mental framework applies across the board, right? I think the one thing that when it comes to most challenges in life, whether it's making career decisions or whatever, or relationship decisions, it doesn't you gotta identify when you're that black and white of thinking, right? Because that leaves so much more room for irrational belief, right? If you're that black and white, it has to be all or nothing. I mean, that's the one thing we teach the most people in within the realm of therapy, right? Is that there is a middle ground, that there is some balance, as generic as that sounds, right? But there is a middle ground. Does that necessarily mean that you're going to be a mental health practitioner for the rest of your life? No, but something, spoke to you about wanting to go into profession. So why wouldn't you want to, or why would you deprive yourself of the opportunity to do that, right? But I think your role on both sides is virtually the same. If people are coming to you after your shows asking for help and wanted to talk and reach out because they were struggling with their mental health and stuff, wouldn't you want to be even more prepared because of all the schooling and training and stuff? And on the other hand, you can do it as a career and make some money by doing it professionally or whatever. Here's another, I guess, bigger picture you have to look at. Part of my practice I work with, shout out the Continuance Foundation. They sponsor a lot of musicians, therapy, right? Mm-hmm. Imagine having a practice that specialized in working with musicians, especially coming from you, right? I kind of play a role in that, and people get it because I kind of understand what tour life is like, and I understand that. But there are so many people who don't know that services exist. Imagine if you were the one providing that. That's a very niche population. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's huge. Very niche. So, yeah, little things to consider, man. Yeah. But life. Not here to coach you on your,
on your career decisions.
No, but you have helped me, because I remember I was saying that I forgot to bring it, but I have a calendar on my desk at my house, and
it has pictures of you in it. He's like drawing your name over and over.
What would I have done without you?
They're just sketches, doodles.
It's like really scribbled cards.
Oh, but like it's funny because I was looking at it and I kind of started laughing because again it was like a conversation we had, and you had told me you gave me a list. You're like TBS, yes, you can do TBS.
What's
you can
TBS?
Oh, therapeutic behavioral services. It's like it's behavioral coaching. Like some kids who need intensive redirection, like ADHD kids or kids with autism, intense behavioral issues where they just can't follow suit.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's pretty intense stuff.
And then you also gave me like a list of like keywords and job descriptions to stay away from, and so like I had this list, and that's literally how I like catered my searching, and got my job. So yeah, so you've been very instrumental in my path, man. So this is good. And then just off camera, we were talking about my master's program and basically I had a plan to work, and then while I was working to do my master's program. The job that I was at, the just schedule didn't allow that, and so I left that job. But even though I left that job, I left so burnt out that I didn't want to do school. I didn't want to go back to school. Nothing in me wanted to do it. But I had to keep telling myself like, you had this plan at one point, like you wanted to do this, like, and so it was rough. So then
I would challenge it a little bit by saying, what if your values change over the next few years? What if that's a possibility? Are you going to hate yourself for not following through on the plan? Right? Because I'm over here like saying, yeah, go do it because I do it. I do this. Sure, I'm gonna cheerlead you, but what if that doesn't work out? What if there's like another path that you want to take? It doesn't have to be all that. Exactly. That's just one of many examples, right? But I don't think it has to be that stressful of a decision to make. Like you don't have to go like balls to the wall into this profession. If you want to, still feel it out or whatever, do some internships, work another job that's similar or, whatever. But
I also think there's something to be said about the fact that the job that you were in, and we've kind of talked about this a little bit in the past, but the job that you took, essentially, you're dealing with people who don't want your help versus for so long people were coming to you seeking help or wanting advice or wanting, so that can kind of shake things up a little bit too, because then you're like, well, not everybody wants, like, how do I handle this now? Because now you're dealing with like pushback and you're like, you're all of a sudden kind of the bad guy in the scenario instead of, so that in and of itself could have like, I don't know, maybe discouraged you a little bit from, the work.
It definitely did, but then there'd also be those moments where I'd be like, as I'm watching the kid, break the 5th TV of the week, you know what I mean? Like, then, part of me is like, I could be in my master's program and I could be doing something more mental health, which is more of what I want to do. Right. Like that's another part of the thinking. I think that's another reason why I'm usually pretty good about being like, I don't want to do this, I'm not going to do it. Like I'm pretty good about stuff like that. But with this, even though like I don't feel like doing it, I feel like I know that like it's going to take me to where I think I'd like to go, and what I want to do with like eventually do therapy and stuff. So
therapy is just another layer on top of that. Once you learn how to build rapport with people especially who are resistant to treatment, adolescents, even harder population. I think the only thing you can do there is by dealing with that frustration and saying that at least I'm planting seeds. I'm playing at least one positive role in this person's life. Because think about it, in adults, we get that all the time. People who are very, who are struggling with mental illness, and they come into session not knowing what to expect. You're the one who's setting the tone for the rest of their time in any kind of treatment. So if they had a good experience with you, if you were the cool guy, let's say you played that role, you were the cool guy who allowed them to do a little bit of extra stuff but was still kind of authoritative or whatever, that makes a lasting impression on a kid, right? So it's not all in vain, right? So, but if talk therapy is what you want to go into, like, it's a completely different field. So, but it is a step in the right direction.
This is kind of like a complete subject change, but not really complete, but a kind of a right turn. So when it comes to like therapy sessions and talking to people. How do you feel about kind of like the new era of therapy with like online therapy, Zoom sessions? Do you feel like it's as effective? Do you feel like it's, or do you feel like the one-on-one connection is something that's like necessary?
That's a really good question. I think, I would only feel more comfortable answering that if we had outcome measures to prove.
Right.
Let's say 5 years after the pandemic, and we've looked at, what we do, like pre and post measures for treatment. We're looking at their scores on the burns, which measures depression and stuff. Or, there's a lot of different ways we measure that. If we see that there was a significant decrease in the efficacy of some treatments, then I'd say, oh my God, that was, horror. That was a bad move.
Right.
But year 2 into this, doing online and even just phone, it's proven to be effective.
Okay.
I think that there are benefits to it. So let's just say it's just a phone session. That person's no longer dealing with the insecurity of being there in front of the therapist and appearing a certain way. Yeah. Now they focus on the content, and their brain is just hearing the audio, which that's like a beautiful way to do therapy. But then what you are missing from the in-person aspect is, for let's say people who are struggling with really intense anxiety or agoraphobia, you can't do exposure exercises with them.
Right.
You can't. It's just not possible. You can say, hey, this week when we're out of this call, this is what I want you to work on. And I've had a lot of scenarios where people will do that, take it as homework, and come back and report. But I would say the effectiveness overall seems to still be great. But the beautiful thing about telehealth is that it creates more opportunities for people who haven't accessed services before, or who would never even imagine driving to a clinic to meet a therapist or psychologist.
Right.
It eliminates that barrier. It's funny because I have people who will be like driving in the middle of their sessions. I'm like, hey, come on, like at least park somewhere. You can't. I've had somebody crash while they were in session. It was like, come on, like treat it like a medical appointment. But yeah, so I would say it's more good than bad.
The only reason I ask is just because, I know especially we're doing a podcast, and a lot lately you hear on podcasts are ads for companies like BetterHelp.
I have certain thoughts about certain companies.
So, and so that's the thing. Like, I always wonder, one, like, is this, like, I'm sure some of these companies are not coming from the right place, right? Like, it's monetized and it's a business, right?
Yeah.
But then two, because I'm not in the same field as you guys are, but when it comes to like training and teaching classes and stuff like that, sometimes we have to default to Zoom because we might have agents at home, or we might have agents that are more worried about the pandemic, or sitting in classrooms, so we'll do them through Zoom.
Yeah.
And I just always feel like the interaction is just way, and obviously it's different when it's somebody seeking help versus me teaching somebody, right? It's things that they probably don't even want to know. But at the same time, like you can like having that screen in front of you, I almost feel like kind of makes you check out.
For sure.
And then there are a ton of people, like, because I've even thought about like, hey, I wonder if I can do therapy through, like one of these companies, or like maybe just Zoom with somebody. But then I personally can't get past that barrier, because then there's also like the conspiracy theorist mind that comes in and like, well, wait a second, like somebody could be recording this, somebody could tune in,
True.
So like I'm just curious, like on the differing opinions, and like, somebody that's in the, in the field, in the industry, like how, what the thoughts are on it, kind of.
I'm also, so I will say I'm a consumer of mental health services. I have my own therapist. We're doing online sessions. And in comparison to in-person, I feel like, yes, the aspect of having that close human connection with somebody in the room where you can feel, I guess, the emotional climate together, that's completely gone. Like, it's missing.
Right.
But when it comes to the strategies of me processing and talking about things and getting feedback, that doesn't change at all. I think the cool thing is, again, it creates a little bit more comfort for me, and I can't speak for everybody, but I'm sitting in my chonies, like, having this therapy session,
Right.
which is nice. So as a consumer, I'm like, this is convenient.
Right.
But I think what's interesting that you said about companies, who establish this as a business first, when that's their model, it does impact the work.
Right.
There are tons of companies, lots of them, who hire on therapists, and they don't even look at really their expertise. They just say, oh, you're licensed? Come on board. We'll have you see all these clients, and then we'll bill all this insurance, and win-win, right? And so, that's why, I think that for anybody who's looking for services, I say go to a private, independent provider. Somebody who owns their own practice, somebody who, because that's what it is. The therapy is about working with somebody that you trust, somebody who's not in it just for just the paycheck. So, yeah.
Interesting. I like that.
That's fair. Yeah.
Don't mind me having an allergy attack over here.
I know. I was keep looking at you like rubbing your eyes.
There we go. It goes in waves.
Did you want to talk? I mean, I know we kind of jumped in a little bit on school and music and everything. Is there anything else that you wanted to cover, or that you guys wanted to talk about before?
I mean, no. I think as far as school stuff isn't. I don't think that's that interesting as far as as far as
It was for you to process through.
Yeah.
It was for you.
So for your practice, you were saying that you do like a bunch of niche. Is there something you can talk about? Can't
Totally.
talk about? Like, I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. So like every therapist has, a broad training and background on depression, anxiety, maybe trauma, right? That's kind of like the things that are across the board. Almost everybody brings to the table. But then you have the other areas that are maybe a lot harder, like psychosis. We're talking about psychotic disorders, substance use, even like those are all separate beasts of their own. But for me, I just by pure luck, I guess, and the different types of trainings that I had with Riverside County, they focused specifically on trauma. Like that was a big one because that's what a lot of kids were coming to services for. Sexual abuse, witnessing domestic violence, physical abuse, the whole shebang. And once I felt like I was desensitized to that, I was like, man, I can really handle a lot of other types of trauma cases and stuff. And so I started honing in on, men's trauma, right? Because a lot of men have a hard time talking about specifically sexual abuse. That's a big one. A lot of guys won't go to therapy and want to talk about that because it's just so uncomfortable. So yeah, I would say it's men's trauma, sexual abuse. Another one's like personality disorders. If nobody's familiar with something called borderline personality disorder, that's thrown out there all the time. You see it on TikTok, Instagram, and all that. Don't believe everything that's thrown out there about that stuff. But personality disorders are typically some level of emotion dysregulation, some mood-related issues, plus interpersonal like challenges, like really intense relationships, hard time, sustaining relationships, that type of thing, and the way they interact with people. And so for me, when I was working for Loma Linda, their specialty was that they put me into was working with the borderline personality population.
right.
And so after I left there, I just took everything that I was exposed to and said, you know what? I feel most comfortable doing this. Let's hone in even more specific. And so I would say my specialty is 18 to 30.
Okay.
18 to 30, particularly men. I take a lot of women on too, but particularly men, trauma. And there's a lot of need for that. So let's just say down the road, you were, to dive into this industry, there's a huge need for that. Porn addiction is another one. You guys have no idea, how much of that is an issue that needs to be addressed sometimes in therapy. And not a whole lot of therapists are comfortable with that.
And
at all.
I don't mean this to be a joke, but what level is considered addiction? You know what I mean?
Asking for a friend.
Asking for a friend of mine.
Very good question, man. So, the therapeutic answer to that is, at what point does it start to impair your daily functioning?
I see. Okay.
Right? Because people have different opinions and even values on sex in general, right?
Right.
So there's always the argument that that's a healthy way of exploring sexual territory and and even self-soothing or whatever. That's, some people would argue that's a part of self-care. Okay, no harm, no foul. But when it becomes an addiction, just like a substance, is it getting to the point where you're blowing a shit ton of money on it? Is it getting to the point where you are neglecting your family because of it? And are you, hiding this from your spouse and going, I get a lot of cases like that where it's, I got caught because, my wife was wondering why I was always in the bathroom all the time. And it's like, okay, think about it. Let's put it into like from a man's perspective, I see that as, okay, he just needed to like rub one out or whatever, do his thing.
Right.
But then he never told me that this was a continuous thing throughout the day until I met with his wife, for a family session. And I was like, okay, that's where the behavior impacts the relationship. And so, and then I have other guys who are throwing money on, like Chatterbait and like online, like things where they tip the person for whatever. And I was like, are you blowing all your money on that, right?
Right.
And so those are kind of the issues. And it's just like any other addiction, right? Could be gambling, could be substance use. But you have to treat it objectively, even though there's like that taboo of it being something sexual in nature.
Right. Right.
So, but yeah, it's a lot of people struggle with it.
I remember reading, and I don't want to say numbers because I don't remember them. I don't know them. But they were saying that like teen pregnancies and like STD transmission and all this stuff, rates were going down because so many people were more involved with like pornography and online dating and just like not actually interacting with people firsthand, or they were just like they weren't having sex because they had porn and they had
online
toys and they were getting what they needed from that,
right?
So like it was actually affecting rates of like pregnancies and everything like that.
I can totally see that.
And that's, to me, like that's, I mean, we're older, so we're from a generation where like, you had to work to get porn. You had to work to get, stuff like that.
Now the internet's just
one click away. But yeah, that's wild. So outside of trauma, is anything else that you deal with, or is it just?
Yeah, I mean, you can go off into all the other types of disorders, but
that's the bulk of.
Yeah, I mean, within what we call the DSM, it's like the Diagnostic Statistical Manual for all disorders, and that's almost like evolving every few years because they'll determine that some symptoms go under different categories of diagnoses. So the one thing that I see across the board in almost every case is anxiety. Some level of anxiety, some little bit of excessive worry, racing thoughts, because how do we respond to stress? Some people can cope very well with it and some people don't, but at what point do you call it a disorder? But people who are coming from mental health services typically are coming with some kind of anxiety. Across the board, like there's just so many different issues. You just have to tie it down to what symptoms are we treating? What symptoms are we trying to eliminate or decrease? So,
speaking of anxiety, I was telling Mike the other day because our buddy Chris helped us go. We found this table on Facebook Marketplace, right? Because we had a square one here and we wanted more of a round vibe. So our buddy Chris has a truck and was able to help us out the other night to go pick it up. And when we were coming back to the house from where we picked it up, Chris had never been here before. And I was telling Mike, I go, every time somebody's following me, I get anxiety about how far I have to drive and that it's too far of a drive for them to be following me, right? And it's like, we were laughing about it, joking, then we get out of the car and Chris is like, why do you gotta live so far away? And I was like, there it is.
Oh my God.
But yeah, anxiety, I can see it.
Even in the mildest form.
Yeah, even in the littlest things, you can, it's almost become part of everyday life for everybody at this point, I think.
Absolutely.
I've liked, so we've been trying to be more of a presence on TikTok. And so I've been going on TikTok, watching videos, and, I would type in like different things like mental health, or I'd type in anxiety. And so at first I thought it was like kind of cringy when people would post about themselves, like, and what they were feeling.
Sure.
But then like there's a couple of videos that I'd see and I was like, this is helpful because I feel like there's a lot of people that might not even know they might not even recognize what anxiety is, but yet they experience it daily. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, this is kind of cool. I think I'm glad this is becoming more of a thing. Like people are finding out, you know, or even just how to see it in people in their lives. Like, you know, one of the things that blew my mind when I first started to get back into school and was that a sign of depression could be, you know, like not wanting to get up, you know, missing work or things like that. Whereas before I would just be like, oh, I'm just lazy. I'm tired. Lazy. Yeah. Like, why am I doing this? I'm so late, you know? Anyway, so I think for social media, I feel like being a big culprit and like doing a lot of harm in a lot of ways. I think it's cool to see that there is some kind of content out there that is kind of showing, you know, I guess a broad view of what things can look like in other people, because, you know, it looks, you know, different. Everyone deals with their own type of things differently, and I thought that was really cool to see. And my attitude changed pretty quick from being like, "What is this?" to like,
there are cringy posts. You can't avoid that. But
now I get texts from Mike like, "Hey, can you log into the TikTok and look at the video? I haven't released them yet, but look at the video."
Yeah, dude. Is it like, are you doing something where you put like text on the thing and you're talking about a particular topic, or what is it? What do you?
So posting? So far I've only done 2, really.
Yeah, we only posted 2.
And so one of them, the video, it's these girls and they're talking about what I think is anxiety, what anxiety looks like in their. And I just did like a duet, and so I basically just muted their video because I like music and stuff. Muted theirs, and I just said like, kind of just pointing out like, this video is good because it's showing, it's basically showing what anxiety can look like in for people in your life that you may not recognize, and this also might be validating for somebody who may be feeling some of these things and seeing it for the first time. Yeah. So stuff like that. I just want to like try and bring attention to a video that I think is good.
I mean, by doing that, you know, we're spreading that out there, that we can normalize a lot of the, you know, this and break down the stigma of talking about mental health. You know, I will tell you this: without social media and without this much like exposure out there about mental health and stuff in this day and age, I probably wouldn't even feel comfortable telling people. Even being a therapist, I probably wouldn't even be comfortable telling people that I go to therapy. Right. But now that I feel like it's more widely talked about, and people can be open about it, how that this is just as important as our like physical health. Yeah. Right. Social media does a very good job at that. My only issue is when, and maybe I'm just saying this because I'm a therapist, professional therapist or whatever. But there are people who put some stuff out there that I think that can kind of twist some information about some of the psychological concepts. I think some people, like, I don't know about you guys, if you go on Instagram or TikTok, you hear a lot about narcissism. You hear a lot about this term called gaslighting, right? And I've seen a lot of posts where it's either used incorrectly or it's amplified a bit, because what's dangerous is that when, for example, with narcissism, you know, people could look at any relationship in their life and say, oh, this person hurt my feelings, or this person's insensitive to me. They're a narcissist. But that creates this like this idea that that's an unfixable relationship, or that person's like personality is unfixable, so therefore we'll never make amends or whatever. And that's dangerous. I think that's very dangerous. A full-blown narcissist is, easier to identify as a therapist when you've been working with them, but you can't call everybody that.
Right.
So
not everybody's a narcissist.
Yeah,
I think there's definitely been like while it's good that there's a move towards like, you know, mental health and being aware of your emotions and being aware of your feelings and stuff like that, I also feel like you're right. Like we're almost assigning blame to things, or like looking for reasons why people act the way they do.
I can see that.
Where it's like, oh, it's because you're a narcissist, or oh, it's because of this, or oh, that makes sense. You know, you do this and you're showing these tendencies, where it's like, it's not always.
What are you going to do about it though? Yeah. That's the thing.
Yeah.
You can label that, and maybe if it helps you make sense of what's going on and why somebody's behaving a particular way or why that relationship is a specific way. Great. Okay. You made some sense of it, but what are you doing to change that? Right. And what are you doing to cope with that? I think is the greater conversation that needs to happen besides 3 signs of a narcissist,
Because then you can.
I'm going to shut up now because that's the one specific
like horoscopes.
Now we're getting into the meat of things.
Yeah.
Horoscopes are interesting to me too.
Well, but just the idea of like, this is what this is, and it's like, well, I'm not that sign, and I experience those things.
My favorite thing, people always, it's because you're a Sagittarius. Like, what does that have to do with anything? I don't understand.
Man.
It's because I have trust issues.
So we do have one question that we wanted to ask, and I hope I get the wording on this correctly. They wanted to remain anonymous, but
are these like live questions or people?
Yeah, like people actually send them in.
That's
Not
cool.
live, but people do send us in questions. And this kind of felt like you would provide a better answer than we would.
Yeah.
Everybody has their own opinions.
So the question was, how do you convince somebody that they need to let go of a relationship that isn't the same anymore? They had made their choice to let it go, but the person that our question asker cares about hasn't made the decision. So there'll be, and there's not a lot of context here, so we don't really know.
Right.
There will be moments of hope, and then the letdown happens. It's been a year of this roller coaster of emotions for the person that I care about. It breaks my heart to see this person I love get heartbroken over and over again. So I'm thinking, how do you help to convince somebody that they need to let go of a relationship that both people have evolved and gone in different directions?
So the person who's asking this question is talking about a friend in their relationship. That's what it sounds like.
That's what that's what I understand.
I don't think you can convince anybody. It's like, I always tie in the examples of substance use because it's more objective that way, right? You can't convince somebody to go to rehab. You can encourage them, you can force them or whatever, but to make the change, it's up to that individual and the experiences they have. So within a relationship, it's tough because what we see is another type of relationship addiction. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with like the cycle of abuse or the cycle of violence. And often, I mean, theoretically it makes a lot of sense, but I think for some people they don't see when they're in it, right? Because what's good is good in this relationship. It feels great. Oh, I'll excuse all of the other behavior because when it's on, it's on. And that's very dangerous because that's the same high you get from smoking that pipe, right? Feels good when it is, but then, you crash and burn. But it's sad to say that some people do have to go through that cycle a bunch of times until that one significant fight happens or somebody gets hurt or that person, but it's up to the individual for them to just say, that's where I'm drawing the line. I'm not going to sit here and tell you everybody needs to go to therapy to figure that out.
Right.
But an example of that is if I had that person in there with me, I'm not going to sit there and go, you should probably leave him, right? The question I would continuously ask is, how is this working out for you?
Right.
Right. How is this relationship benefiting you?
Right.
Right. And they have to make that realization for themselves. So as a concerned friend, I guess to answer that question, you can encourage them to seek help. You can encourage them to leave the relationship or whatever. But I think my only real advice would be support them, whatever decision they decide to make. If it's abusive, we'll see. We don't have that much information. But if it's getting to that point, the best you can do is support them and listen to them. Yeah.
It's a tough one because one, we don't have a lot of information, but two, just kind of making some assumptions whether the relationship has just as you grow and as you get older, people change, right? And then sometimes people just end up no longer compatible with the way that they've evolved. And if it is like a violence or abuse scenario, that's kind of almost a different beast in and of itself, because at what point in time do you step in for your friend to kind of end that cycle, or even just like mental abuse. Like there's so many different aspects where the answer would be a little bit different every time. It seems like.
No, absolutely.
I really like what you're saying about like almost like checking in with them and just being like, how's this working out for you? Like how, cause I feel like if you can, it's like one of those things where if you can get someone to repeat, like basically what they're like, over time they might start to hear it in their voice, or they might it might make less and less sense to them. Why am I here?
Exactly.
Why am I doing
You can tell
this?
somebody over and over, that's a garbage relationship. They might get even more defensive, and that's going to affirm the belief that I need to prove that this is a good relationship. Right? Over and over and over again. So that can be dangerous. But if you're saying, hey, you know, it forces a person to like reevaluate that for themselves. But what you said about, you know, I think that's like the most realistic and logical perspective, that people can grow apart and their values change and interests change or whatever. And that's just, I think, a natural and unavoidable part of relationships. And if that's the case, why do you want to be in that relationship with somebody who's not compatible with you? Just doesn't make sense. I think that when you become so like I don't like to throw that term out a lot, but it is a form of addiction to the relationship, right?
I've been there. I've 1000% been there.
I've been there.
Where, like I even like asked myself, like, why are we both still doing this when we don't work together anymore? Like, and we both know it, but we're here just because this is how it's been, and this is where we're comfortable. You know, that's tough. Hopefully somewhere in there was an answer to your question. You know,
Listen to them if it's about a friend.
Yeah.
I know. These are like just our questions.
Yeah.
We have another anonymous.
Another anonymous question. What do you do when you can't stop eating Taco Bell on a Sunday?
So I do have one, and this is like for me, but I also feel like this could help a listener too. Because you're mentioning, and you kind of did say a little bit of this. I think you said it off camera about how like when you hear something like heavy, about how you need like, or when you get off work, you're like, I need time. I need like almost like an hour just to kind of get away from it. You know, I think for myself, leaving my last job, I valued the fact that I had like a 35, 40 minute commute, because I would sometimes just sit in silence driving home. Or sometimes I just have like something like a podcast, or I started getting back in like listening to music, enjoying music again. Like it was like finding like, you know, angry music to go with how I was feeling that day, or putting in something that was like super mellow to kind of like bring me back down. I don't know. And so, you know, for me, I felt like, you know, I valued that commute to kind of decompress. But I guess my question is just, because you hear some really heavy things. I've heard really heavy things, and I have a fraction of like the schooling and stuff to like learn how to really deal and with that kind of stuff. So I guess maybe this question is just for me, but like, what are some ways that you, I guess, deal with or cope with, you know, hearing pretty horrific things, I guess, you know?
Well, the comment you made about the schooling, school is never going to prepare you for that.
Sure.
I mean, your internships will give you some exposure to the work, the heavy work, but then the way we cope, I think that's all unique to the individual. For me, like, I have a system. By the time I'm like 5 o'clock hits, that's when I'm out of that session, maybe a little bit over. Like, there's something that is, to make the transition, like, I close out my charting system, I shut the computer down, I get up out of my chair, I stretch, and it's very systematic. I go out to the refrigerator, grab something, whatever, and I start my unwinding process, right? Throughout that whole time, I'm hearing everything from all the sessions I had. I'm feeling sad for people. I'm feeling anxious about if this person's going to make it tomorrow or whatever. You know what I mean? So there's just so many emotions. And, you know, for me, like the first couple hours after a shift like that, it's just chilling out, like physically doing something to cope, right? Now, long-term care means, one, having your support person, which thank God for my wife, I get to talk to her if I'm having really heavy cases. Obviously, she wouldn't understand the clinical aspect of what I'm talking about, but that's a place for me to talk.
Yeah.
I'm also in my own therapy. Sometimes I use that to talk about work or whatever. But out of all of them, this is not I wish it was like a more like magical sounding answer, but self-talk is one of the most powerful tools that we can use, because you don't rely on the feedback from somebody else. You don't rely on, some therapeutic intervention, but talking to yourself. So sometimes for me, if I'll give you an example, like if I had this really heavy session one time, this woman felt really ashamed and guilty for her behavior from the past or whatever, and she felt really depressed and suicidal, and said, I don't want to make it. There's nothing for me to live anymore, right? And she was on the verge of hospitalization. And I'm just feeling this so heavy, right? And I check in with myself and ask, why do I feel that way? And it's because you feel like maybe you're not doing a good enough job with her. Or, right, and that's just one example of a thought that could come up into my head. I'm like, dang, that's so heavy. But then you have to learn to challenge that. I'm doing the best that I can in this career. This goes across the board for any job, not just being a therapist. But let's say you have a fuck up at work and you're like feeling all the guilt and shame from it or whatever. It's the self-talk that I'm doing the best that I can. Or, hey, today was just about getting the paycheck. Or, whatever that inner dialogue needs to look like, but actually saying it out loud. So when it comes to managing stress, I mean, it sounds kind of weird to talk to yourself out loud, but the reason why I think that's so effective is because when we're dealing with uncomfortable emotions like sadness or anxiety or whatever, stress, it's because we're being, like, a lot of thoughts are reinforced internally without us knowing it. It's happening. I'm such a shitty coworker. Oh, I'm a bad friend because that happened, or, whatever. We don't think about those things. But by using the self-talk out loud, we're almost like combating that, right? We're trying to reinforce a different perspective, right? So, off a shift, couple hours of self-care, playing Pokemon on my thing, whatever. And, but then after that, if I'm really struggling with the emotional distress, gotta get support. I mean, where else? Wife, therapist, friends, journaling, self-talk, right? Hitting the gym is a big one. You gotta do something to relieve stress. But when it comes to vicarious trauma, it's like a whole nother level, man.
Yeah.
So what I was talking about is like the general stress from hearing people's like depression and mental health stuff. But when it comes to the really gnarly shit, that's a whole nother, like, I can't even describe that feeling.
Like what you're saying about like the sexual abuse thing.
Yeah.
That like takes me to like a really like specific moment that I had, because there was a time, the earlier times of when I would like basically, I was just venting on stage about losing my friend to suicide, and that eventually that talk became what became our message towards the end of our shows, and so I remember like the early couple, maybe the first year of that, or maybe a couple months of that even, it was very general. People would just be like, hey, sorry for your loss, or like, or hey, I'm going through this too, or like some stuff like that, and that was difficult to hear. I didn't know how to handle it, and then the first time someone that I kind of knew told me that it was sexual abuse, a male, it like, I don't think I slept that night. I just could not shake, like, I couldn't shake that. I couldn't stop thinking about what he had told me and what he had gone through. And so I just had a hard time, like, being able to disconnect from that. Like I said, I lost sleep, which is super important on tour.
Right.
And actually, I think that might have been one of my moments where I almost didn't want to start. I kind of was like, dude, I don't think I can do this. Like, I can't lose another night of sleep, or else I have no voice tomorrow.
Wow.
Like, just thinking for tour, And so, thankfully, I was able to, manage to get some kind of sleep. But every now and then, I would hear something that just stuck with me, and I didn't know how to shake it, especially on tour. I tried to find things. I had like ways to try to get away from it. I had during baseball season, I do fantasy baseball. Keeps my brain going. Sure. I had comic book stuff I could read on my phone. I had whatever it was, or I go on a walk, just kind of get away. But I was just curious as to
coping strategies.
For something that like that intense, because it's been a minute since I've heard something like that. I went to this point. I want, like, I know it's foolish just to be like, oh, I've heard it all, because I know I haven't for sure. But it's been a while since I've heard something that really shook me to like, I'm not gonna be able to let that. I can't stop thinking about this. Like, this is gonna be with me all day.
Do you think that's because you feel like you're desensitized to it now, or just because you haven't had that interaction from being off of the road for so long?
I don't know. It's weird, because I feel like, and I don't know if you ever into this, because I kind of know, like, I kind of have a little plan for myself too, like my I call it my safety plan for when I like feel myself like being in a spiral or feel myself. I have like a checklist that I do, and it's just weird. Sometimes I just don't want to do it, and I almost like let myself just spiral.
You want to feel everything,
I guess, yeah. So,
well, I would say that there are healthy parts to that, because sometimes it can turn into avoidance, right? When we have coping skills, we have these things that distract us from the issue itself. Let's just say it's the thoughts of whatever story somebody had told you. Your brain's saying, hit the eject button, so distract. Go hit the gym, go, watch a movie, go whatever. And to a certain degree, if they help you tolerate the moment, great. I think that's fine. But at some point in time, you're going to have to go back to it. It's still there, sitting there in the corner.
Right.
And by addressing that, we always hear that in the world of therapy. There's like, you need to face things head on or whatever.
Yeah.
That it looks like a million different things. You mentioned desensitization, right? And so desensitization could be talking about it frequently. Could be forcing yourself to talk to somebody about it or journaling about that particular issue, right? Because, again, what happens is avoidance if you're just distracting. So for me, those heavier sexual abuse, oh my God, I had this one case where, it was just about an infant being, murdered or whatever and all that. And I was just like, I don't even know how to feel about this. And it had to be through a series of me actually talking about it out loud. So desensitization and exposure, those are the two strategies for dealing with your own trauma, even if it's vicarious. So I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time just trying to distract from it, So that would be my piece of advice, because when it comes to anxiety or whatever types of negative beliefs or thoughts, you have to confront them almost, right? It's kind of not the answer that we want but it's the reality of it.
I had one last question for you. Have you felt like, since you are a musician, you do play in a band, have you felt like your work has affected your songwriting or lyrically, or is it like, are you able to kind of separate the two, or do you? Yes
and no. I've never taken any bands that I've been in seriously, and I will say, in contrast with what you guys got going on, I respect all that shit. And that's why I'm I look at my band as a joke compared to that, because the message behind any of these songs is wah wah poor me, and I feel like that was just an outlet for me to talk about either a past relationship, or I just thought it would sound good because this song sounds a little more emo than whatever, what I mean? Right. Oh, a cool breakdown there, let's make the punchline something about whatever. And so but I will say it was therapeutic for me to write some of that stuff. We have a lot of unreleased, stuff that's more personal to me, that I don't think is ever going to be released because my band's not down with it. You know what I mean?
I see.
Personally, the reason I say I respect the whole no bragging rights thing is because it's very clear. It's very clear that you guys take that seriously, and that and people are receptive to that, which I think is just so freaking cool. If I had that type of platform, I would do it, but I'm not one to talk. Dude. I don't think I have that kind of voice. So music for playing shows and stuff, man, it's just circle pit, that's all I like to do.
But what's funny is I feel like that's what my spirit is with music.
Yeah.
And then I forget that our band is pretty intense as far as message.
But that's cool. It works. It does work, man.
I want to write fun. Even Burn State, dude. Burn State is supposed to be
it was supposed to be really fun.
It's supposed to be really
a few songs that are,
and a couple songs that I'm
if you can't turn it off, though, I mean, I think there's a place for it, and if, when people are receptive to it, it shows that it's worth doing, you know.
I'm actually I'm kind of happy that you gave that response, if I'm going to be completely honest with you, because we do get a lot of questions of like, what are your feelings on, or like what inspired you for writing, or what was your thought process, and like, you know, like to me, music should be fun first and foremost. Like, yes, it can be an outlet, but it should be, you know, it should be fun for you. It shouldn't be a job. It shouldn't be work. You know, and then I like that people. I like for people to see that there's an aspect of like, I didn't write this line because I'm, you know, completely pissed off and I hate the world or whatever the case may be. It was just because it was fun, or because it fit, you know,
fits the mood of the song.
Yeah,
and
like this. I don't know why our camera keeps dying. Like we've like this current project that I'm in right now. It's like 100% like all the lyrics for me. It was just like I just wanted to write something really pissed, right? So a lot of like some of it's really aggressive, and I don't feel that way.
And I,
you know, right? Like,
even in my little feature, I let myself.
Mike let himself go. Like he's
I put
got
on
a
the
song
angry
on the
hat.
record.
There's nothing real positive about my lines in there.
So
It's
yeah,
the song I actually swear on. Like a
for people that don't know, Mike has never cussed on record throughout since the 90s.
Wow.
Mike hasn't dropped one cuss word, and then he dropped it on our new EP.
Did you want to talk about that?
It felt nice. It was I just because I remember like we'll play it for you. We'll play you his band because it's cool. It's fun. It's hardcore. It's, you know. And so when he's like, yeah, it'd be cool if you jumped on the song, and he told me kind of what the song was about, and I just remember thinking like, I don't want to approach this as Mike from MBR. I want to just have fun with this. What he told me what it is, and just go. And so, yeah. So
that's crazy though. That maybe that was never the approach with all of your other stuff. Like, I don't know, for some reason you felt it needed to have like some kind of intent and purpose behind it, but all of a sudden you're just like, I want to have fun with this. I wonder where the contrast was.
I wonder because maybe it's not mine.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're just. Hey, let me just
cosplay as a tough guy in this band.
Cosplay is a tough guy.
I would say though, I mean, a lot of I've listened to a lot of the No Bragging Rights stuff, and that screams tough guy. What are you talking about? Like, it's even though it might not be the in your face like type of hardcore, it's still like, it's still there.
Thank you.
If that makes you feel any better.
No, it does.
It's 1 point on Mike's tough guy card.
You're saying this to me as I'm sitting across from him who has like a man scream. Like he scream. You'll hear it.
What's a man scream? What is that?
No, Mike just because I like my voice is just deeper.
Yeah.
In general, and then my scream is deeper as well. Sure. And so Mike is always like, you scream like more of a man than I do.
Like,
it's different.
It's funny. I like how our thing my feature works on, because mine, I'm just like so incredibly high when I come in. Like, my scream is high. and then even when I try to drop it, then it sounds, I guess it comes a little bit more down to what my MBR scream is, I guess, but
yeah,
still pretty high.
I gotta hear this.
It's fun.
Well, I mean, yeah, that being said, you know, I think we're cool. Do you have any plugs? Do you want to promote your, not your band, but business, your anything? Where can they find you on social media?
Plug the band, dude. Highland.
I don't know. Like, I'm
Plug
not.
Highland. We're gonna put Highland in the outro. You know.
Oh no! Don't do that. No, I'm cool. If you found me somewhere on social media, you can see what I'm connected to. But shout out to my wife and my beautiful daughter Jamie. Yeah. But I'm not a social media whatever guy. I have my accounts.
We're trying, man. We're trying.
No. See, that's cool because you have the platform for it. You know what I mean? I'm just over here like, hey, I just want to be in touch with people. You know what I mean?
Well, dude, thank you so much, man.
Thanks for having me. This is cool.
Yeah. It's nice to have actual professional insight into things.
You'll like our intro. We could probably tell you, like, hey, we actually have a professional.
Hey guys, this time.
Yeah, our intro actually says we're not professionals. Like our intro says it.
And you can bring on professionals.
We gotta cover ourselves there.
Yeah.
So yeah, once again, dude, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for coming to the house.
Been a pleasure for sure.
Having Taco Bell with us.
Yeah. video dropped out a couple times, but you know, we'll put technical difficulty stuff on there. There's only 8 of you guys. But thank you guys so much. Make sure you guys check us out at Walking Blind Pod. Send in your questions at walkingblindpod@gmail.com. Mike's got a Twitter now,
logo,
TikTok. Yeah.
Damn, this is official, guys.
Find us on TikTok.
Wow.
I'm trying.
Follow all of that.
I'm trying so hard.
Apple, Spotify, all that jazz.
Leave reviews. Did you say that already?
No.
Yeah, leave a review. 5-star would be cool.
5-star would be
Any
cool.
review
4-star, and then explain why.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you, Dylan, for being here, man.
All that on my end.
Yes.
Yes.
Peace out, everybody.
Who's losing now, Mom?